You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. This is Force 13 Live, and we are looking at Hurricane Sally, which is approaching the US Gulf Coast. Afternoon local time on the Gulf Coast and Eastern time as well for those watching across the US and around the world. We also have several other systems active as well in the Atlantic predominantly, but other basins starting to get in on the action now. The breaking news this hour is that Tropical Storm Newell has formed in the Western Pacific. For those wondering about that, that's headed for Vietnam, could strike there as a typhoon. We'll have time to chat about it later on. But of course the main feature is still Sally, which will be making landfall in either Mississippi or Alabama in about 12 to 24 hours, depending on how long it wants to take, because its motion has been extremely slow in the last few hours. At times it's been stalling, at times it's been moving just a little bit east, other times it's been moving west. And to be honest, the National Hurricane Center's cone still can't decide whether or not definitively it will make landfall in Mississippi, Alabama, or even extreme western Florida. It could be either of those three states for the landfall location, and its intensity is also slightly up in the air, although with quite a wide eye, we don't expect significant intensification, but we could still see it get up towards the border of Category 2 status like it was last night. My name's Nathan Foy. I'm joined by some of our usuals tonight, Amy, David, and Thomas Schwent. Good evening, afternoon to you all.
Hey, Nathan.
And let's now hop over to, well, first of all, the National Hurricane Center forecasts. These will be updating at the end of this hour. So by the time we finish this hour of coverage, we'll have those latest updates. But for the time being, this is what they're saying. 80 miles per hour for Sally, which is a little bit less than what it was yesterday. And then moving inland, landfall around the same intensity tomorrow morning. And you can see Teddy on the right hand side as well, expected to become a major hurricane on day 2 and persist and gradually move towards Bermuda, which is not really what they want to see, having just encountered Paulette. Thomas, you've been watching it closely all day, I think, Sally, and we've been looking at the radar together on many occasions too. There are warnings for waterspouts possible. I've seen one or two along the radar. Doesn't look like any have moved over land areas yet, but regarding the storm itself and its structure, what do you think?
Well, the first thing that's notable is that on satellite we're starting to see kind of an eye feature.
We're not getting your output properly there, Thomas.
What's going on?
Try again just now.
Okay. So, big thing with Sally is that first things first, we're starting to see an eye feature develop on satellite imagery, which indicates that it's starting to try and get some sort of dominant eye wall. That does kind of contradict what's going on, though, on Doppler radar, because what we're seeing on that is these kind of eye walls fighting for dominance right now. But right now, at least on satellite, it seems like regardless of that, the storm's overall organization has improved today, and that could result in some gradual intensification up until landfall. We've seen the pressure dropping on this storm over the past few hours, so I believe it's down to around 982, 981 millibars right now. I mean, it could get up into the high 970s. I mean, I think that personally, yes, the ceiling for the storm is about 100 miles an hour before landfall. At this point.
And when we were looking at this yesterday, we're quite thankful for that, because, you know, we watched yesterday and it looked like it was going to be a major hurricane.
Yeah, there was a time yesterday when it blew up really rapidly. That low-level and mid-level center stacked, and you got a big convective burst over the center, and it looked like it was go time. The thing that was that really saved us here was that the storm actually intensified so quickly the structure couldn't keep up.
Wow.
Like normally you're not going to see a rapidly intensifying 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm form an eye wall instantaneously. Normally, at least that process is still very gradual. Well, what Sally did was it had a huge convective burst, and it tried to form about 5 or 6 different eye walls I counted yesterday simultaneously.
Wow.
It was absolutely nuts. So they were all just fighting each other, and there wasn't a dominant eye wall. The scariest part about that is it still managed to become a hurricane. So I can't imagine how strong it could be now if it weren't for that structural problem.
Now we're looking at the storm on the visible mesoscale rapid scan right now, and you can see it there. And as we've seen on a few occasions, it's got those cloud tops blowing up on either side of the eye again. But also, it would still appear to me as though the eye has a significant weakness on the eastern side, and you can see it all wrapping in there.
Yeah, you can really see that on infrared satellite quite clearly. The strange thing is, I think that we're actually going to see that convective burst look quite a bit better. I think you're going to get some new frames that come in that show those -70s wrapping all the way around. I think that break's going to go away because on radar, which is more up to date than satellite, at least my satellite, it looks like that cluster of storms that created that burst does wrap in and integrates with the rest of the eye wall. So we'll see if that holds true on satellite. That convection could very well have waned by this point, but we'll just have to see.
Now, on the ground, we have a webcam from Alabama. Where was this again, Amy? We were looking at this yesterday, weren't we?
Yes, we were. This is in Gulf Shores, Alabama.
And I was looking on the radar imagery about an hour ago. There's a waterspout out to sea by a few miles that was near this area. Might have been visible from... Well, no, it wouldn't have been with that poor visibility there. But and that's another thing, you know, these waterspouts that could be coming in. You won't get much notice of that.
That's true.
Visually.
And there is a special marine warning in effect for about 20 more minutes. It's in effect for 50-knot winds and potential waterspouts that could be moving on shore. And I've seen a few people out on the beach during this, and that is not something that I recommend doing.
That's clever.
Especially with visibility that low, you're not going to be able to see anything coming in. It's a very dangerous situation here that we've got right now.
Now, assessing the conditions there, you're seeing gusty winds. It's not... Looks like there's a few periods of calm in there, but it's definitely pouring and significant winds there. What would we expect those wind gusts are right now, do you think?
If I had to estimate, I would say maybe 20 to 30 miles per hour. Maybe some stronger gusts in these outer bands that are coming in. Like I said, that special marine warning is up for 50-knot wind gusts, so that we could see some stronger winds. There's a view of the parking lot. Thankfully, it looks like there are no cars, so it looks like nobody's there right now. Looks like everybody has left that area, which is very good news. And one thing that I had noticed is that those waves are really starting to surge over the entire sandbar there, over to where the concrete is.
Yes, noticing that there. So we'll keep tabs on that for sure.
If I can remember correctly, I believe Gulf Shores could experience 4 to 7 feet of storm surge, but that may have changed.
The center is currently predicting over. You said Gulf Shores, right? In Mississippi.
Yes, in Alabama.
In Alabama, yeah, it looks like about 4 to 7 feet is their current forecast.
Well,
that's quite significant.
That would get it beyond that road, probably, at least, in the case of this webcam.
And I'm just wondering whether those flags will remain flying.
And I have been looking at those flags, seeing which way the wind is blowing, and sometimes during the day, it'll blow towards the ocean, and then it'll go back to facing towards the parking lot at times.
But generally,
this
you're
will be-
seeing the winds blowing sort of towards the north there.
Yes.
David?
And sorry, Nathan, is the tide coming in? What's it doing, Amy?
I don't
Sorry.
have any information on tides right now. When Laura hit, wasn't that near high tide?
I think it was.
I don't even remember at this point. Feels like it's been light years since then.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Well, anyone who does know, please let us know. But you can send in questions live on the air. And by the way, those storm surges are based on if it strikes at high tide, right? Is that right?
I think that has to do with some of it. It's definitely going to affect
what they
just how
usually
far
say.
in that surge can go.
But anyway, it's coming in, that's the whole point. Storm surge warning for the whole area along the coast. And this is the latest radar imagery, and you can see the storm spiraling around and really not moving very much, obviously. But it looks like in the latest imagery that maybe it's just a wobble west-northwest now after it was wobbling east earlier today. So it really can't make its mind up.
Nathan, just reading the wording in the latest NHC advisory and some rave boys data, and 150 miles or 80 kilometres southeast of Mobile, Alabama, recently reported sustained winds of 56 miles per hour or 90 kilometres an hour, and a gust to 67 miles per hour, 108 kilometres an hour within the past few hours.
So that's probably
And
about maybe 30 miles from the eye.
And a weather station at, I think it's Dolphin or Dauphin Island in Alabama, recently reported sustained winds of 45 miles per hour, gusting 59 miles per hour. And the central pressure by the Hurricane Hunter was 982.
Yeah, I'm hearing that maybe they're getting 1 or 2 981s, that the pressure's still gradually dropping.
I'll check on that.
Yeah, because Recon are in there right now, aren't they?
Yes, the latest center fix has it at 981 millibars.
981, that's probably what they'll go with at the advisory then, which is in 45 minutes' time. Let's take some questions then. What are the chances of Teddy becoming a Category 5? I shouldn't laugh, actually, because it's a non-zero number, whatever it is. Teddy, where is it on our imagery? There's so many images here. Let's look at the wide shot of the Atlantic to see if we can talk about all those systems right now. So you can see there, obviously Sally on the left-hand side, which you can see its eye popping out just a little bit on the infrared. Paulette moving off, well off towards the north now. Isn't going to get its major hurricane peak in all likelihood now. It's actually weakened slightly. Teddy there is really starting to look good. Already a potential clearing there. I'm not sure whether it would be classed as any kind of an eye, probably not at this point, but 65 miles per hour so far. It's made a good start, and it's not moved north yet by the looks of things either. But yes, regarding it, whether it becomes Category 5 or not, who knows in a year like this. What I will say is that it's broad, so chances would be harder than usual. So my instinct would be no. On the right hand side you've got Vicky, which is blowing up little puffs of cloud top convection, which is struggling a bit right now, isn't it there? But it's still persisting as a tropical storm. That wave down there near Africa not looking quite as good, or at least as exciting as it did yesterday, but there's still high chances for it, 70% from the National Hurricane Center. That could be our W named storm, and that means we'll be exhausting the conventional naming list of this year's Atlantic hurricane season for the only time since 2005.
And Nathan, the one in the Gulf of Mexico, no change?
Yes, we are also looking at the Gulf of Mexico there. You can see some convection blowing up just off the Mexican coast in the southwestern part of the Gulf. Models think that it could get gradually developed in the next few days, and it could be a tropical cyclone. So if both of the ones I've mentioned form, then you're on to Greek letters. And not only that, but when you look back over the Atlantic, I'm not sure you can quite see it on this, it's at the very top near the Azores right now. A non-tropical low that's moving through has a chance of becoming a subtropical cyclone right the way up there, east of the Azores. And, well, we'll be having a few Vince vibes if that develops.
And 20% at the 5-day mark.
Yeah. And even more than that, something that we can't show you because I don't have the imagery with me, but there is a potential Mediterranean cyclone right now as well. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
That's going to the close center on it with 40-knot wind barbs.
Is it now?
Yeah.
That's changed from when I last saw it. Anyway, look, Teddy, you can see on that imagery again, the visible. It's looking pretty good on visible, I gotta say. What do you think about Teddy?
Teddy is looking good, and it's my bad. It's actually 35 knot barbs
Okay.
on the Mediterranean storm. But yeah, on Teddy's looking good right now, and I know that we mentioned the chances of it becoming a big one earlier. Models have taken a significant downtrend in its intensity recently. Most of them don't even take it to major status anymore. It's an interesting development. We'll see if that remains. Something else to note is that models have been anticipating that it would start moving in that northwesterly direction for the last 12 hours or so, and it hasn't done it. So it's not moving like the models have been expecting. So
And Recon are around Teddy right now, aren't they?
Yeah, they're having an upper level reconnaissance mission that's going on right now, and yeah, it looks like they're taking a look at the upper level environment there. They're trying to find out what the strength of that ridge is. There's a drop zone that just got dropped outside of the center that shows 999 millibar pressure. So that's interesting. So we'll see what happens.
All right, let's take some questions then. So we talked about that recon plane already. A question there about the potential for a Medicane in the Mediterranean Sea. We spoke about that briefly just then, and the answer is quite possibly. Models suggesting it could even be a tropical storm landfall in Greece at the end of the week, which would be quite something. Can Paulette strengthen when it goes straight south? What do you make of Paulette and its expected motion? Because it's doing all kinds of things. The National Hurricane Center dives it south past the Azores after it rounds a corner, and then some models redevelop it.
Models are really strong in it with that southward dive. It's really quite remarkable. And after it takes that southward dive, yeah, there's definitely potential for redevelopment. I wouldn't be shocked to see it become a tropical storm again.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what happens. But if you're in the Azores, honestly, I'd be watching it.
Absolutely.
The National Hurricane Center is still predicting this to be attaining tropical storm force winds as it moves through, regardless of whether it's tropical or not.
And then it might interact with Teddy a little bit, and who knows who it will get spat out.
Yeah, the uncertainty with Teddy plus the uncertainty with Paulette even redeveloping in the first place is going to cause some very interesting things. The good news out of that is if we do get a storm that develops in the MDR and becomes stronger, as long as those storms are there, they're basically punching a hole in the ridge so those storms can recurve, which means that the Caribbean, Gulf, and United States are going to be spared at least for the next little while. Unfortunately, I don't see that lasting throughout October.
Thomas, just looking at the satellite imagery and following on to what you just said, what's our thought re the long-term track for Sally? Could it come back once it gets back into
Ooh.
the Atlantic?
I don't think so.
So we have two
Just
solutions
It better not.
that could occur with Sally. The first one is that it moves off the East Coast, gets taken in this trough, and completely gets shot up towards Greenland. You know, does that whole thing. Or it turns back around, heads back near the Gulf. In my experience, almost every single tropical cyclone where you don't have the best agreement that it'll loop back around, normally what'll happen is, and we can already see this happening, the solution that will be favored and the solution that will occur is the one where it moves out to sea. This happened with Matthew. I believe this happened with, was it Joaquin? There was another storm where it could have looped around. No, it wasn't Joaquin, but Joaquin had a unique track scenario too, where it was recurvature versus ramming into the United States. Yeah, that was Joaquin. And so even though the Euro was remarkable with Joaquin, but normally the track, when it's recurvature versus not recurving, at least in scenarios like these, I've found that recurvature happens more often.
the reason why I put that question, I cited a couple of days ago some tracks indicating, and I know it's long term, back to the east. And what's Portugal doing? It was supposed to recurve too, wasn't it?
Well, it has at this point. It's basically blazing right now. It's moving at about almost 30 miles an hour, as it will be making its post-tropical transition within the next couple of days.
We think.
Interestingly, yes, we think. Although we also thought that it would be a major, so...
Well, I never did, I gotta say.
Happened.
I never thought that would happen, personally, when I was looking at forecasts. I just think a little bit optimistic.
I think the 125 was aggressive, for sure. But I thought that 115 was a reasonable forecast.
Let's just give a mention to the newest tropical cyclone around the world, tropical storm that is. Tropical storm Newell, which has just developed off the western Philippines. That's headed west-northwest, and the JMA, who have just named it, they think it could, from what I saw, I think, could take it into Vietnam, possibly as a typhoon.
Yeah, the Typhoon Warning Center agrees with an 80-mile-an-hour peak
80
currently.
mile peak.
80-mile-an-hour peak, yes.
So I'm sure we'll be seeing more coverage on that as time goes on.
Yeah, that'll definitely be one to watch for sure. I've been keeping an eye on it, and I'll continue to.
Now, look at this latest visible imagery on Sally. Is the eye getting better, more clearly defined?
Oh,
Look. Here, just give me a moment, and I'll be right with you on that. Because, yeah, it was getting much more clearly defined on infrared, so now it's just a question of is it getting more defined on visible. And the answer to that question is... I'm stalling.
It is stalling, that's true, yes.
Yes. That eye is becoming more clearly defined. At least in my opinion in those latest frames.
Yeah, I agree.
So could we see an eye pop out here before landfall occurs? I don't know, but... Well, it definitely could. I don't know if it'll do it.
Looks like it is right now.
Yeah,
where
we'll
would you
see.
say the eye is, Thomas? Looking at the infrared.
Well, it's easier to get it off the radar.
Yeah, if I had to get a center fix from infrared right now, it'd probably be around 89.2 west. I should probably start with the latitude, but it's at about 29.4 north and 89.2 west.
To be honest, though, I'm seeing good agreement on radar for its position as well.
All right.
And that eye is getting quite clear now.
Yeah, it's not good news. We'll see if that results in strengthening. Let's see what the latest recon data
Yeah, I was
says.
just going to ask.
Latest recon, their latest pass supported, I'd say, 80-mile-an-hour winds. They had a lot of flagged readings that were a little higher than that, up to 85 miles an hour. But as a result of them being flagged and rain rate spikes and things like that, it's hard to justify. And you could say because those 80-mile-per-hour readings were around them, you may want to discard that and knock it down to 75. So,
Really?
as of now, I'd be saying a 75 to 80-mile-an-hour hurricane with a minimum central pressure of 981 millibars, and I think that they'll probably run with 80, 981 at the next advisory.
I don't agree.
No?
I think it's strengthening, honestly.
Well, its pressure is certainly dropping. We know that. I think it's just its structure hasn't quite gotten there, and maybe wind lag could also be another part of it.
Maybe.
So we'll see.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
recon has not found evidence to support anything above 80 miles per hour, in my opinion.
And those are the direct observations, the most direct we're going to get before landfall.
That's true.
Any chance of Sally regaining 100-mile-per-hour winds is a question from Dawson.
Yeah.
There is a
I think it
chance.
could.
Yeah.
I think it's less than 50%, but there's a chance. I'd probably give it about 30%, and that might even be aggressive to some of you.
Quite a few people are querying about upwelling from this storm, and I mentioned in the past you have this sweet spot really for tropical cyclones. If it dips below about 5 miles an hour of forward motion for too long, then upwelling is going to take a toll. Well, it's been moving nearly stationary for a good 6 to 12 hours, if not more, so upwelling is surely going to start at a point. Do you think that's coming soon, or do you think it will happen at all with this storm?
Upwelling is not going to be that huge of an issue, honestly, with it. Big reason for that is because, firstly, the ocean heat content, at least last I checked it, was higher, at least. I mean, upwelling has certainly occurred to some extent. The sea surface temperatures are, instead of being around 30 degrees, about 28 to 29.
Yeah, but the
that's
thing
still
is,
gonna be enough.
the thing is right now, it's over shallow waters, so upwelling's surely going to happen more quickly. And also, what was I going to say? I was in the middle of it right then. That was one of the reasons. Oh yes, just at the Gulf of Mexico, right along the shore, usually the water temperatures are a little bit cooler than out at sea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a bigger issue if this were a Category 2 or 3 right now.
Right.
But I don't think that upwelling's going to significantly impact it as a Category 1. I think it'll be able to sustain this up until landfall. Now, if this were going to stall about a day from now before it got there,
Well, it could.
oh, for sure, I think upwelling will be an issue. But assuming that this does make landfall within the next 12 to 18 hours, I don't think that it'll knock down the intensity too much, unfortunately.
I gotta tell you, latest mesoscale models are suggesting that landfall will be, and it keeps going later. Earlier today it was suggesting it would be about the same time Laura made landfall in the day, night as it is. Now it's suggesting that it might be at 5 a.m. tomorrow, so that's really taking a hike further down the timeline.
It has the Hurricane Center saying 7 a.m. tomorrow.
7 a.m.
Yeah, so we'll see.
It's a tough one.
I'll be interested to see what they put at the new forecast advisory.
And
Thomas-
still models say different things. If it's going to go in Mobile Bay, it will hit that barrier island there at about 5 a.m. Local time. If it decides to veer further east towards Pensacola, like one or two mesoscales are suggesting, such as the RGEM model, that's suggesting a landfall at 7 a.m. I suppose it's just a matter of, the Alabama coastline is the direct route right now, so that's the only reason why it would get there earlier.
Yeah. I mean, regardless of when the exact landfall occurs, land impacts will probably get significantly worse within the next, I'd say, about 6 hours or so.
Looking back at that webcam right now.
Oh, that's got worse, and the tide's definitely coming in.
Well, this is a different camera, isn't it?
This is a camera out further
Yep.
out into the ocean.
So we don't want to mislead people there. It's not exactly the same place as the one we last saw. It's lower down and it's further out.
I believe this is on a dock that goes further out, and the other camera is further inland on a shack or something. But I changed to this camera as this gives a good perspective of how strong those waves are. As sometimes I've been looking at this, sometimes you can see when a wave comes in, the camera will start shaking a little bit, and I believe it's because it's on a dock. And I've seen some pictures of parts of that dock that it's sitting on, that I believe it's sitting on, have gone underwater.
Wow.
That's what I'm thinking. We might see it go under.
So the surge definitely coming in there, and we think even at this point that the wind is not going to be the most of our issues. You're looking at a storm surge there, which could be 7, maybe more feet. And then you've got rainfall amounts which could reach 30 inches, which is responsible for most of the points accumulated on the CDPS scale, which is calling, I think, for stage 6 landfall, is it?
Yeah, stage 6. I think that it's a stage 6. That is if that 30-inch rain core is guaranteed to strike land. So Devin is holding off on the upgrade until he knows that 30 inches will fall over land. At least that's what he said in the notice board earlier today.
So there we have it. As we look at the waves coming in Alabama there, and you can see some spray just coming off there as well. You've got Hurricane Sally, 80 miles per hour, pressure of 982, about to, well, slowly inching its way towards the coast. Paulette, which is out at sea now, it's far clear of Bermuda, 105 miles per hour, pressure 965. Teddy, 65 miles per hour, pressure of 999, and intensifying there in the central Atlantic. Vicky in the eastern Atlantic with winds of 50 miles per hour and a pressure of 1004. And 3 areas of interest out there as well. They won't be updated shortly, but the storms, those 4 storms, will have brand new information on them near the top of the hour. In the eastern Pacific, we've also got Tropical Storm Karina, 60 miles per hour, pressure of 996, which is higher than what they were expecting. And a lot of people took delight in pointing that one out. And in the central Pacific, there is 1 area of interest that's at a 0% chance, so not really sure why that's even there, but I guess they need something to do in peak season over there at the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. So they've got that one marked up.
Yes, I'm seeing a lot of suggestions that we could see a stronger Teddy at the next NHC advisory, which I wouldn't be
surprise me.
by.
The update on Vicky is out though, 45 miles per hour, pressure 1004. They expect it to turn tuned down to a tropical depression by this time tomorrow. Not much to say about Vicky.
Oh, pretty reasonable.
And as soon as we get updates on the other storms, we'll have it first here. We'll take some more questions. Why is it that the pressure is low but the wind speeds aren't that high? What was that?
Oh, is my mic working now?
Oh, there we go. I didn't know it would broken.
Okay. Oh, well, I'd started talking and then I heard what was that. So.
Oh, yes. Well, it's a common question, actually. A few people asking whether, why the winds might even be decreasing and the pressure's decreasing.
The biggest reason for Sally is because its structure is awful, or at least it was. It's still recovering from its terrible structure. And so what's going on is that strengthening has recently been able to resume. So what's going on is your wind speeds are still lagging behind, but your pressure is beginning to fall again. So I would anticipate a little bit of an uptick in wind speed within the next 6 hours or so. But we'll have to see. I think, again, though, the realistic ceiling for this storm is probably about 100 miles an hour at this point.
Well, considering that the pressure decrease isn't really that substantial, we're talking about 1 millibar every hour or two.
Yeah, I'd say definitely that constitutes the fact that this will be strengthening
At least a little
relatively slowly.
Update on Paulette, 100 miles per hour and a pressure of 970 millibars. We were expecting that. They are expecting it to turn post-tropical early on Thursday morning. So they're expecting it to turn post-tropical at that point, and they're keeping it post-tropical through the rest of the forecast period up to day 5. It would be interesting if they acknowledge the chance that it could redevelop in their discussion when it comes out shortly.
Interesting to see. I'm going to be watching that closely for sure, and seeing what exactly they think of that. I'm really right now very interested to see what they're going to run with for both Teddy and Sally.
Yep, I think everyone is. We've got loads more questions coming in. Opinion on the circulation off the coast of Portugal. We've mentioned it. We haven't really discussed it very much. What do we actually think? I think they've still got a 20% on that.
Yeah, it's a 10% chance in the next 2 days, 20% in the next 5. I believe there's some model support for development. Regardless of whether it actually does develop into a tropical cyclone, it's fairly certain that if
It
you're
wouldn't
in,
be
like,
tropical.
well, subtropical, I should say. That'd be the better way to put it. But regardless of that, the system is definitely expected to bring within the next 3 days some significant rainfall to Spain and Portugal. So definitely something to watch regardless of development. Weakening from this point forward is actually anticipated by the GFS when it comes to the raw pressure. So yeah, right now development seems unlikely.
Update on Carina right now, 60 miles per hour, pressure 998. Not much to say about this one either. It will turn into a tropical depression on Thursday evening. That's the one in the eastern Pacific that's not threatening any land areas. They're just slowly trickling out these advisories. There was a question there about whether it's best that Sally continues stalling out in the ocean and will it lose its energy. I wouldn't want to gamble on that if I had the choice. Because more sea time could have the opposite effect.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
The discussion there is out on Paulette, sorry, cut across there. I don't think they're mentioning anything, are they? No. They seem pretty sure that it will be post-tropical and won't come back. Update on Teddy is out, still 65 miles per hour and a pressure of 997 millibars. They're expecting a peak intensity still of 120 miles per hour before weakening begins.
That sounds pretty reasonable. I honestly think that this could be a weaker storm than they're anticipating. Intensity guidance has gone down substantially for Teddy. I'm going to be interested to see what the next model cycle suggests, because the cycle before now suggested about a high-end Category 2, low-end Category 3 probably, and now I'm having a hard time justifying any forecast points above 105 miles an hour based on latest intensity guidance.
The National Hurricane Center will be updating on Sally soon. In the meantime, we're looking back at Alabama there. I'm just conscious because we're now joined by Wyatt, and you are in Pensacola, which is pretty close to this storm and could still be potential landfall zone.
Yes, conditions are actually beginning to really deteriorate now. Just looking outside, like actually a minute ago, the trees, like the entire trees were like really blowing to the side with like rain coming in sideways. I would say winds are probably gusting up there to tropical storm force now.
Sorry to interrupt, 80 miles per hour now for Sally still. That's the latest update, so it remains at 80 miles per hour, pressure down further to 979, and they expect it to remain at this intensity until landfall.
Okay. Well, I was looking at it, and the recon, like I actually went out for a little bit to the store. and I didn't know about this, and like I come back and it looks a lot better, and I hear that it might be organizing.
Yeah, it certainly could be organizing. We're going to figure that out here soon, whether it's going to be able to do that fast enough to make a significant difference. Current intensity guidance suggests the storm won't be able to strengthen much before landfall. And I'd be inclined to agree with that. Even your aggressive H-Wharf and H-Mon doesn't show even a Cat 2 at this point, I don't believe.
This is still for Sally, yeah?
Correct. GFS is still deepening it, though, quite a bit. And H-Mon is actually, I stand corrected, H-Mon still calls for a Cat 2, but H-Wharf does not.
So there we are. The updates came out remarkably early from the National Hurricane Center this time around. They whipped out 5 storm updates in the space of about 10 minutes and were still 20 minutes ahead of the published time that they aim for. So they've done really well on that one. I think they're saying that Sally's moving north.
Yeah, but I wonder what if it's like jumped a little northeast, but the general motion is north.
North at 2 miles an hour. I'm inclined to agree with what they're saying on that, because it's done a bit of east, it's done a bit of west. Now let's go over to the cones. These were the old cones, and now we're just gonna update Sally. So there's the new one for Sally, and you can see there.
Yeah, it's starting to look like you think I'm gonna get the core of the storm at this point?
Not just yet, but you are still in the cone.
Oh, the cone almost looks like it takes it really close to over me.
It does.
Like, yeah, it's a wow. It's getting really bad out there right now. I mean, it's really starting to blow out there.
Maybe you could get 70-mile-an-hour winds there by the looks of it.
Yeah. Rather interesting thing to have a surprise to. I wasn't exactly expecting that. In fact, I was expecting maybe weakening.
And the Teddy forecast has barely changed, just so you know there as well.
Yeah. Looks like it's maintaining intensity for now, but I feel like there's somewhat of a chance it could go up maybe 5 miles per hour or 10 miles per hour at the most.
Just for those who are wondering, there have been no changes to the watches and warnings for Sally. That's why we haven't mentioned any. So we're pretty much as it was. What are we looking at on the webcam right now? That looks a bit curious.
I switched it back to the... I believe this is a restaurant that it's actually sitting on top of. And there looks like conditions are starting to improve a little bit. I can now see the buildings back there.
I'm just wondering if that's a clearing coming through on the left-hand side or something.
Possibly.
And I'm not sure how much sense that makes.
Where is that?
This is in Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Oh, no, that's not a clearing.
Is that the opposite? Is it sheets of rain?
Probably.
Because it looks like on the radar that there's a band pretty much over this place.
Yeah, and it looks like the very outer fringes of the inner core might begin to move onshore in a couple hours, maybe. But yeah, I'm having
forecast discussion. And actually, their key messages. So when their new key messages came out, something that I did want to note is that the National Hurricane Center is now expecting isolated areas of over 30 inches of rain over land. That would constitute a stage 6 on the CDPS scale.
Let's read out their discussion then. Here it is. Sally has been inching its way towards the north-central Gulf Coast today. The overall structure of the storm has remained about the same during the day, with a large, ragged eye is apparent in radar. Little grammar error there, I think. Imagery. A NOAA P-3 aircraft that has been sampling the storm since late this morning has reported peak flight level winds of 76 knots, and National Weather Service Doppler radar has shown velocities of 75 to 80 knots at about 7,000 feet. The intensity was reduced to 70 knots on the 18 UTC intermediate advisory, that's 3 hours ago, and remains at this value for this advisory. Moving very slowly towards the north, about 350 degrees bearing at 2 knots. The track forecast philosophy remains unchanged. Sally is currently located within an area of weak steering flow between a couple of mid-level ridges to its east and west. A weak mid-level trough over the south-central United States is forecast to slide eastward over the next few days, which should cause Sally to turn north-northeastward and then northeastward over the next 24 to 36 hours, and it will remain slow for that time. However, they're acknowledging that the guidance has trended slightly faster over the 24 to 48 hour period. Nonetheless, the slow forward speed is still likely to result in a historical rainfall event, as they say it, for the north-central Gulf Coast. And they say again, it may sound like a broken record, but the track guidance has again shifted eastward during the first 24 to 36 hours, and the forecast has been adjusted accordingly. Users should not focus on the exact forecast track or specific location and timing of landfall, as strong winds and bands of heavy rainfall are already affecting the Gulf Coast, as we've been seeing, and will continue to do so for quite some time.
Yeah, it's a pretty serious situation overall. And again, they said in the public advisory in their rainfall section that they are expecting those isolated amounts of 30 inches. I will be watching very closely to see what exactly is expected now on their new rainfall forecast, which did just come out. They have a much more widespread area of 20 plus inches right there. Along the Alabama coastline.
Are you able to show us this?
Yeah.
Please.
I can.
Oh, I just want to tell you something interesting quickly. I do have a weather station set up, and for this entire event, I've already recorded, I think it's about like either 5 or close to 6 inches already.
And you're in the 15 to 20 zone there.
At least, maybe 20.
And it's not just a rain event for the landfall zone. Obviously, it's the worst there, but you're still looking at 6 to 10 inches now, all the way into North Carolina.
Yeah, it's looking like a big event for well over much larger of an area than just the immediate landfall zone. It's looking like this is going to be a significant rain event for quite a while here. And interestingly enough, rain accumulations for New Orleans looking minimal.
Wow, yes.
So it looks like New Orleans impacts from Sally might actually be pretty minimal compared to what we were expecting just a couple short days ago.
They have just had a little band move through just there on the radar.
Yeah, of course, they're still going to be getting some outer bands, but it looks like they're not going to be getting any direct hits from it. Some storm surge is definitely going to occur, but it looks like the wind and rain, at least, are going to be remaining offshore for people in Louisiana.
More questions then. Will Teddy hit Newfoundland?
Way too far out to tell.
It's possible. Could ex-Rene reform in the Caribbean?
I don't even want to contemplate that.
You don't?
But I haven't even looked at where ex-Rene is right now.
don't. I really don't think it will. Do you think that Sally? Do you expect Sally to drop over 35 inches of rain? Certainly possible. In 1 or 2 isolated spots.
Certainly have to see. It's definitely a possibility. I'm going to take a look at some mesoscale models and see if I can get a better idea on that. But while I'm doing that, do we have any new recon data that's come in as of recently?
I have no idea.
Well, I'll take a look real quick.
I think the recon is heading out right now.
Yeah, 980 millibars is now on the latest center fix, so it has dropped another millibar.
I believe
No, they dropped to 979 on the update.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah.
So they're probably knocking it down a little more.
I believe
I'm sure
the
there's a drop con of some sort that found that.
I believe the next recon should be there about 7 Central tonight, 6:30 or 7 Central, from what I read earlier.
And here's a look at the Eastern Pacific right now for those who are interested at all in Carina. I think more people would probably be interested in what's going on further north there. You can see still a very hazy picture over there in California, and a lot of smoke that came out to sea was interfering with an extratropical cyclone yesterday. So we're still seeing bits of that. Obviously, we're not as the satellite isn't panned high up enough to see the whole picture there. But that was one of the requests just now. A few people are getting a little bit worried about Teddy in the Lesser Antilles. How why hasn't the forecast shifted west since the storm hasn't made its northward turn yet? And a question about whether where did it go? Could Teddy hit St. Kitts and Antigua and Barbuda due to its west-northwest movement? Anything you'd like to say on that?
No. If you're in the Lesser Antilles, I still wouldn't anticipate that Teddy's going to bring huge impacts to you, if any. But it is interesting to note that it has not made that northward turn yet, and the National Hurricane Center is so kind of perplexed by this. They've sent out recon to put additional data into models, so that way we can get a more accurate track forecast with the true strength of this ridge. So it'll be interesting to see if
Let's
they
hope it
find...
doesn't pull a sneaky one.
Yeah, I'd certainly hope for that. Even current satellite, though, would suggest that that turn's got to happen soon. If you're on the Atlantic view there, you can actually see that kind of defined line. You can see X Renee, and then you can kind of see that trough there that's starting to dig in. So I'm not, even if the ridge is stronger than anticipated, I'm still not exactly sold on a Lesser Antilles impact.
Okay. When do you think that the National Hurricane Center will initiate hourly advisories on Sally? Well, that could come soon.
Any
It
day
won't be
now.
Is that? I got a quick question. Is that an eye forming on visible for Sally?
For Sally?
Yes.
The eye has been somewhat visible for a little while. It's there, definitely there.
Yeah,
Let's just
I
take a
haven't
look at the
seen-
closer look again on this just for a moment. There it is. Yeah.
Nathan, you said she had a bit of a ragged eye when you're reading the information there from the NHC.
Absolutely. I don't think anyone could say otherwise. It's definitely a ragged eye. It's not a well-defined eye at all. But as you look on the webcam once again from Alabama there, visibility's gone right down again.
Yes, it has. And Gulf Shores, Alabama, is now under a flash flood warning until 11:15 Central tonight. This also includes places such as Foley, Alabama, Lillian, Alabama, Pensacola, Florida, Ferry Pass, Florida, and Holly, Florida.
Any reports of localized flooding taking place?
Actually, we were driving around in that general area because we wanted to go to the store for something. And anyway, there was actually quite a bit of water already beginning on the roads. Several ditches were full, and there was like a couple inches of water on parts of roads.
Well, like you said, you've
already.
had nearly 6 inches, right?
I think so. And on top of that, like, it already looks like that the gusts to tropical storm force we've had have already caused some smaller tree limbs to come down.
Road closures?
I'm sorry?
Any roads closed? What's the traffic flow like?
Yes, down in the downtown Pensacola area near the bayfront, there are some roads closed due to flooding. And then the 3 Mile Bridge has been closed due to A, tropical storm force winds, and B, a barge actually hit the bridge.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm just looking at radar again. It really looks like it's pivoting around itself. It looks like it's doing another little loop round there.
Yeah.
it looks like she's improving. Looking at the radar.
I'm not sure.
I'm
Maybe a
inclined
little
to
bit.
agree that the eye wall looks better than it did
Yeah.
before. You can see it clearing in the center, and you can see especially on the back end there where you got those greens on the southern side. Those are now yellows.
That's what I was.
which,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
which-
just looking at
which
that.
normally-
Thomas, good point.
Normally, you'd think, well, the storm's moving closer to land, so you'd think that's just because it's moving closer to land. But Sally isn't really moving right now, especially in that span of time. I don't think that it's moved significantly enough closer to land to constitute that sort of increase in magnitude on the southern side.
That is looking good.
I'm thinking that kind of coincides with those convective bursts. I think that Sally's structure is improving pretty quickly.
Look at it again, though. In the
think-
northwestern side, there's probably 5 wind peaks still in there.
Yeah, it's still an absolute mess, but it's a mess that's starting to get some sort of organized structure to it. I'm not sure here. Recon shows a much more uniform wind field than it did last time.
Right.
Still multiple distinct wind peaks within there. 1, 2, 3, 4, but they're nowhere near as large as they used to be, and the 4th one has a far bigger spike than the rest of them. So I think there's definitely a dominant eye wall at this point.
Sure.
And Thomas, when will the next lot of recon data be released? When will we cite an update?
Well, I believe that our latest mission is about to end, as it looks like it's NOAA 3 is flying out of Sally right now. And I'm unsure of when the next reconnaissance aircraft plane would fly into it. I'll see if I can find any scheduling for that. We'll see. We were supposed to have 3 flights today, and it looks like, it looks like those flights have taken place.
Wind's really getting up there on that webcam by the looks of things.
And
They are.
Thomas, go on.
They are, and I've looked at those flags, and it's hard to tell sometimes, like, if they're still there or not. But it looks like they are, but it looks like they're just getting tangled on that flag
Yeah,
pole.
on the pole. Yeah.
Aw. Wow.
Yeah, something's happening.
Visibility seems to be, it seems to be getting better visibility-wise in the short term, because I can see those buildings again, but we just saw it to where it can get all better where you can see far out, and then it just goes completely, you can't see in front of yourself.
And Thomas, have you had a look at the UA latest model?
The latest Euro model run, I haven't looked at it recently, but we'll see if there's anything interesting going on there. It does intensify it pretty quickly upon landfall, but it should be noted that it initializes it at 12Z, and it says that at 12Z on Wednesday, or 24 hours from now, it would be down to 981 millibars, so it's already beaten that. So it's intensifying faster than the Euro anticipated, but I don't see the winds going above 100 miles per hour for this still, even with that improved structure. And honestly, at this point, I'm having a hard time seeing it go above 90. So we'll see. Yeah, if it's going to blow up, it's got to do it now.
I think it might be.
Yeah.
We'll
possibly.
see. I'll be interested to see if we get any additional recon today that can tell us whether it's undergoing a phase of rapid intensification. We'll see. It is improving on satellite, but that southern side is starting to look weak again on infrared.
Damn.
So I don't know if that structure is really gonna really going to be able to improve upon landfall.
Well,
Thomas,
we're finishing up this hour now, David. Anything you wanted to say just now?
I was just going to ask any sign of dry air when you're looking at the southern or southeastern area.
Yeah, dry air entrainment's been an issue for Sally. Nathan, you were right about that yesterday. And it looks like that's continuing to be a little bit of an issue.
Well, we'll be staying on top of this storm, absolutely. We're just, well, we're finishing up for the time being because the storm's progress is very slow and not much is really changing. If necessary, we might be live later tonight. If not, we will definitely have regular updates on our YouTube channel on Force 13. And of course, you can stay up to date on our social platforms as well, Facebook and Twitter. Search Force 13 all in text there as well. And you can communicate live with our team and over 1,000 hurricane trackers and weather watchers and everyone really on our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13. For the time being, we're finishing up here. You can find live satellite imagery of Sally on our US channel, a live feed there, Force 13 US, and we've got our 24/7 streaming service, which will continue on the main channel. If you're on the generic live link, it should default to that very shortly. It's on our channel somewhere, and that's showing everything that's going on out there. But thanks very much to the team for taking part in another discussion this evening. Who knows, we might be back again tonight if this storm decides to do something that we really don't want it to. We will be here. But for now, we'll see you later. Have a good evening, hopefully. And team, thank you.